Test and Rina. Psachim Taf Kufyud Ches. Gemara tells us Kashin is on a social Adam Kriyas Yamsuf. That it's as difficult for a person to provide sustenance, to put bread on the table, as it was for God to split the Yamsuf. So Gemara Psachim, based on the Pasuk Tehillim, Nosim Lechem L'chol Basar, and it says right next to that, Samachlai L'gozer Yamsuf L'gozer, that God gives bread to all of the living, and then He is the one who splits the sea into paths. So what do we see from here? That the proximity of these two verses describing, extolling the miracles that God provides, that there's an equation between His provision of lechem for the world, of food for the world, combined with or connected to the ability of God to split the sea. So the Gemara says it's just as difficult. Divrei Chazal. Now, by the way, what's the other thing the Gemara points out? That it's also as difficult to bring people together. Shidduchim, zivugim. I find bringing people together is much more difficult than eating food. Eating food is a lot easier, but it's not about eating food. It's about how Hashem has to distribute food to the world. If you think about it, we're in a privileged part of the world. There are people all over the world that literally are starving. And that's not a given. It's not a given that there's food available, that there's potable water available for everyone. So that's a miracle in its own right. The Gemara, the Pasuk Tehillim describes how Hashem provides food for the Karnei Re'im and the Beitzei Kina. He provides food for the giant creatures called the Re'im, which, according to one account in Chazal, were a third of the size of the world, whatever these giant creatures are. And Hashem provides food for the little eggs of lice. Thank God. And the food for eggs of lice are hair of little Israeli girls. That's what they feed off of in the world. That sustains everyone. I don't know if you know this, but lice in Israel is like a thing. It's just part of life. It's like you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you have lice. It's like they don't even bother to treat it. I don't know why. If you're looking for something to do in Israel, if you want to think about a job that you can change the world, think about making a mandatory lice check. You can't go to school. They'll get rid of it in a year. There'll be no more lice. We don't have a problem here, but in Israel, they don't care about it. It's like, it's just part of it. Oh, my daughter has lice today. Okay, what else is new? So anyway, Hashem provides sustenance for every creature, big and small. And that job is as difficult as it was to split the sea. I once heard an explanation that the comparison between Kriyas Yamsuf and Zivugim and Shidduchim is that it goes against the natural tendencies that men and women are naturally different from one another. Sometimes people come to me at my office and say, but we're so different, Rabbi. And I'm like, yeah, well, thank you. You haven't said anything new. Of course you're different. But the natural differences are very hard to get over. And fighting that natural difference is as difficult as it was to take water, which naturally sticks together, and to split it apart. That's the Maharal of Prague. That's the Maharal of Prague. But the Mazonos part is a different approach. Providing sustenance, financial sustenance, food, is as difficult as it is to split the sea. Divrei Chazal, Eluhem lahalacha ulamas. This is halacha, and this has a lamaisa component. This is a practical component. Nidme la'atzmeinu im haynu anu miyotzei Mitzrayim achar me'ot shanim shel avdus nora. Let's imagine, let's picture ourselves as if we are leaving Egypt after 210 years of incredible labor. V'ga'alnu HaKadosh Baruch Hu misham benisim geluim v'nifloim. And God has redeemed us with open miracles, wondrous miracles. Ulebesov kasher odev paro acharenu shebetzaf ketzef v'harog osano aolenu v'tapenu. Paro is in a mad rage running after us. He's trying to kill us, our children, our babies. V'ayam hanora otzer ve'adenu nikra v'hofach liyabasha v'ovrim anu bel b'chara. Suddenly this big sea splits apart. It leaves us walking on dry land. Im hayinu anu min ha'olim mehayam. If we were of the people who had come up on the other side of the shore, we definitely would have sang a song. No question. It just came from our lips. Ubislavos, nora ubisimcha atzuma, and with great excitement and with joy. Hine limdonu chazal. Chazal are teaching us an important lesson. When you come home to your home, and you have everything in your house that you could possibly need. discussion broke out in my house on Shabbos. People were talking about, one of the kids mentioned it would be nice to be rich, and so we are the richest people in the world. We started describing everything we have. Really is a karsa tov. You come to your house and you realize how you have everything you need. Lo chaser lo, lo mazon lo bigud, and you're not missing any clothing or food. Lo nevesona for you, your household. Harezek could create yam suf mamash. That is a splitting of the sea. But just by thinking about it, you could acquire this feeling, this sentiment. Everyone has to get used to the fact when you open the refrigerator, when you open your closet, and you see the dozen bottles of Chalav Yisrael milk from Kiwi Kids, and you see that you have every outfit you could ever need, and dozens of shoes. Go to wait a second, delay for a second. The Yomer La'atzmo, say to yourself, Ma'ayin Li Kolze. I'm not making fun of anyone with the shoes. I have more shoes than my wife does. I don't know how it happened. I think I don't throw them out. I'm not gonna make that joke. Okay. Yisake Rega V'Yomer La'atzmo, Ma'ayin Li Kolze. Where do I have this all from? Where did it come from? Minos and Lizos. Who gave this to me? Kamachein v'chesed porosh kan. How wondrous it would be. How incredible it would be if you realized that. And you would stop and sing a song for a moment. So let's just pause and see what he's doing. He started with a chazal. The Gemara says that splitting the sea is equated to the provisions that we have been provided as miraculous. It doesn't mean it's as difficult. It means it's as miraculous. And just as it was second nature to burst out in spontaneous song, they have these videos of people somehow, they're in a shopping mall or supermarket, they start singing, right? What are they called? Something mob? Flash mob? Right? So, by the way, you don't want to have a mob and you don't want to have anyone flashing, but a flash mob is good. So a flash mob is recited. I don't know how. Sorry about that. So I grew up going to Yankee Stadium games, and basically it was surprised when someone didn't run onto the field in their underwear. It was like the normal thing. Some drunk person would go onto the field and start to parade around, and everyone would cheer him on. It was great. How long could you go before the cops would arrest you? Who was more out of shape? The schlub who was running onto the field in his gatkes, or the police officers with donuts in their hands? But everybody was out of shape. Anyway, so you would delay a little bit and say, wait a minute, I'm going to burst out in song. The spontaneous flash mob that should take place when you reach the shores after leaving the Yam Suf, that's the equation the Gemara is getting. It's not that it's as difficult for God, it requires the same Hakar Satov and the same song. The Od Sham B'Divrei Chazal. I'm Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. Another thing that I've learned the hard way this year. Sometimes the fact that we can go to the bathroom is as difficult as splitting the sea, right? And it's not always as simple as taking Flomax or something. It's complicated for some people, or medicine. For some people, they're hospitalized for months. I found this in my family, and this is a nightmare. And you think about that we are the only, as far as I know, the only religion that recites a bracha when you get out of the bathroom. And I used to laugh when I saw, not laugh, I used to kind of thought it was funny. I saw these yeshivish guys, the freshbacks from Israel, I call them, freshbacks, and they go to the bathroom in YU, and then they stand and face the wall and they shuckle for 10 minutes saying Ashiyatsu. Right? Really, they didn't remember the bracha. I'm just trying to remember it. But I always thought it was funny. Like, okay, get back to your learning. But it's the greatest miracle in the world. It's the greatest thing in the world that we have a system that works. This is a practical halacha. When you can go to, when you can relieve yourself and realize the wonders of Hashem, there's nothing wrong. It's working. There's nothing that is stopping you to make you sick, to make you ill. Look how I am cleansed so easily. What a kindness it is from God. Avar es kriyas yams. That moment you're passing through the sea. That moment, and by the way, the kamat sarach lomar birchat hashiyatza mitlavut kol d'shodat HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What excitement you have to have! How you should sing Gashayatza. It was no coincidence. This year in Pesach, they had that ship, a giant ship that was caught in the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal, by the way, is the Yam Suf. It's the same body of water. And here you have this thing that is caught in the mud, like the ships of the Egyptians, like the Paro's fleet, Paro's soldiers, and it's caught. And two things came to mind. And one of them was a joke, but it's really serious. And one of them was, first of all, this is the Kriyas Yam Suf. The fact that right as Pesach was beginning, they finally dislodged this ship that was on an angle and it couldn't get through this canal. On the other hand, right, I thought the Ibn Ezra. The Ibn Ezra points out that he says everybody has their system, their digestive tract is kind of stopped on Pesach because they're eating all this matzah, right? And I was thinking this imagery is kind of funny. I actually said it at some point, and but it's not a joke. Meaning it mamish is a Kriyas Yam Suf when it works, right? It actually is that miraculous. And when we could pass through, and when the system works, when we can eat, when we can function as a healthy person, there's nothing like it in the world, right? You ever have like an acute infection, you get antibiotics, and then within 2 days you're feeling better. There's no better cause of song in the world than that. Now, the reason why we don't sing is because we're just used to it. This Raga with talk, that's why it's a joke. This guy shuckling saying Asher Yatzar. I go to the bathroom 3 times a day. Why would I sing a song? Right? So litragel, because you become accustomed to it. With tochet naim hasech I can open my eyes in the morning, and everything works. Al zeh amar Chazal, Amar B'Shuv ben Levi, Kol Omer Shira Ba'olam Hazeh Zocha B'Malom Haba. If you sing in this song, right? Shira, like Kishma Kehi, Shira Roth. So as you are, your name is Shira, you are interested in singing Hallel every day. If you are a person who wants to sing every single day, you will merit to sing in the world to come. Remember, Asher Yochvei Veisecha, praiseworthy are those who sit in your house. Od Yahalalu Chasela. One day they will sing more. They will sing even further. And that's what it means, right? The regular things that we're used to, things that almost people scoff at, and they don't recognize are miraculous. Parnasa, shidduchim, even going to the bath. King Darshu Raz Chazal, Az Yashir. That's why it says, then they sing the Lashon Atid. Az Yashir, they will sing. That's future. It didn't say then they sang. You know, the Torah has a lot of this. It's actually a grammatical device where sometimes they'll use future tenses and past tense. But usually when it happens, it will be a vav hayipuch. It will have past tense and the vav will make it future tense. It will have future tense and the vav will make it past tense. Here, there is no vav. It's just they will sing a song. So why is it saying they will sing a song? Why didn't it say they sang a song? So so it says, and people call me with unknown numbers. I tell them I don't pick up. I don't know. I forget how to pick up the phone when I don't see a name. So anyway, also from the middle of the shir. So Az Yashir, in the future, they will sing. So why the future? Amar Sham, Amar Rabbi Meir, Minayin L'Tchias HaMesim Min HaTorah. How do I know that Hashem's going to bring back the dead one day? How do I know what's the source that there will be a Tchias HaMesim? Shneimar Az Yashir Moshe Bnei Yisrael. They will sing the song as Yashir Azos Hashem. Shar Lo Ne'emar. I didn't say they sang. El Yashir, they will sing. This is one of the sources of Tchias HaMesim. Okay, there are several sources. But one of the sources in the Torah is that they will sing a song. The Torah testifies that the Jewish people will sing a song one day. And Amisha Shar Shir Sayam, those who sang the song by the sea, who will sing the song? The people who sang. People who sang down here, they were the ones who sing the future. And the earlier sages wrote this when it comes to the prayers in the morning. You have to say every word by word in the Az Yashir. The Noam, pleasantly, uvitam, and with flavor. The Kavana, with intent, Gedola, Ki'ilu, Atma, as if you just passed through the sea. And God just saved you. And that's that's the way we're supposed to sing it, is if it's happening to us now, so we will sing it one day. This idea that this Kabbalistic idea that those who sing now will sing one day is part of the story that they say about the Chosav Lublin. One time it was Simchas Torah, and there was a chassid who was all despondent because he didn't know how he fared on the Yom Hadin. He didn't know whether HaKadosh Baruch Hu judged him favorably that year or not, and he had been in a dark depression from Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur all the way through Sukkot, and there was Simchas Torah, and everyone's dancing, and he's sitting there on the sideline. So the Chosah said, "What's wrong? Why are you doing this?" He said, "Because I don't know. I'm anxious. What if my din is a bad din? I can't celebrate." So Chosah took him up to Shemayim, of course, to see what was happening, and it was the exact same scene. And there were people dancing, and there he was on the sideline, sitting all depressed. He says, "What are you showing me? This is the exact same scene down there." He says, No, this is the future. He says, "What do you mean this is the future?" He says, "Well, all the people who are dancing below, they're dancing because that's their reward. But you're not dancing, so that's what you're going to look like in the next world." So he understood that really a person generates their own simcha. It's true in this world, by the way. It's true that if you want to start, I always try my best. I'm usually cranky in the morning. I like mornings. I like late nights, but I'm cranky also. Like I wake up until I have coffee. I'm kind of like I have a cranky face on. So COVID's been wonderful because nobody sees what an angry person I am in the morning. I have this mascot. I want to just paint that smiley face on top, like the Joker, right? But if you start your day with a smile, right, I promise you're going to have more simcha that day. It's a reality. It always works. Force the smile in the beginning, force the joy, and the joy comes. But he's saying something more profound. He's saying that in this world, if we dance, we're going to dance in the next world. That the vision of the person who's dancing in the next world are the very people who are dancing down here. And this is the completion of the greatness of the soul. And it's the way we atone for all sins. Remember we said last week that a person who is always smiling, you don't think they're a fool. You actually want to be around them. They're fun. Look at that person. That was just a great time. You want to hang out with those people. Nobody wants to hang out with people who are frowning, who look upset, right? So you want to be, Hashem also wants to be around people who are smiling and happy. So you force your emotional state. Who is able to sing all the time? We can't do it all the time, but it's close to us. Sing for the various bodies of water that you were able to cross in your life. Right? Singing in the rain. Every time you go through a Kriyas Yamsuf moment, sing a song, Lahodos Lahala Hashem. Open it to Him. Turn on some happy music at that moment. Except during Sfira, then you have to listen to the soundtrack from Schindler's List. No, but seriously, you should really try to turn things into a joyous occasion. And that will be your mini Kriyas Yamsuf. Now we get to the opposite. Okay? Now that we've discussed the joyous experience, now we have the opposite, which is sadness. Page 110. Rabbi Nachman is famous for saying that the biggest mitzvah, the biggest avera that's not in the Torah is sadness, and the biggest mitzvah that's not listed in the Torah is happiness. I don't know if you ever heard that before, but that's like a thing Rabbi Nachman said. You know, it doesn't say you have to be happy in the Torah. It says, You're being punished because you didn't serve Hashem with joy. But it doesn't say you have to be joyous. Never says that, right? So who says I should be happy? Some people actually like being miserable. That's like their happiness. Like that's their thing. Ha'atzvus, sadness, mida meguna. It's a disgraceful trait. We think of it as like nebuch, they're sad, they're depressed, we feel bad for them. But it's actually a bad mida, right? Like you would be upset with someone if someone was angry and cursing all the time. You'd say that's a bad mida. If someone was jealous or spiteful, you would say that's a bad mida. But someone who's sad, we say, oh, I feel bad for them. It's actually a bad trait. You're actually a bad person if you're sad. What does that mean? So, okay, I don't want to make people who are going through, God forbid, depression feel like there's some sort of guilt. There is a clinical and medical side to it also that is beyond our control, for sure. But when we are in control and we exhibit sadness, that's a bad midah. So this is you have to be very careful how you say this again, because by the way, there are people who are ill and are angry because they're ill. There are people who are, that's putting that aside. Because, alcoholism is not just a bad midah, it's also an illness. So you have to be careful how you express it. Is the joke, right? Alcoholism is a disease. I've heard who says this. I think Mitch Hedberg of blessed memory says, alcoholism is a disease. It's a disease that people yell at you for having. Nobody ever says to you, what's wrong with you? You have lupus. Get a hold of yourself. So that's true. That alcoholism, they give you a hard time. But the truth is, the part that is in your control with all of these ailments, the part that is not part of the illness, the moment you decide whether you're going to have a smile or a frown in the morning, that single moment, that part may be in your control. I don't know. And for those for whom they have control over that, it's a mida meguna. It's a sin. It's a bad trait to be sad. Everybody knows. We all know how hard it is for everyone when someone's going through a hard time in the household. And people don't even, and the worst part about it is, whether it's their fault, if they're going through a depression, or they're just upset because they're just upset, they can't control it. Either way, nobody wants to be around sad people. And that's the worst part about, handling any of this, is that it causes people to leave you and to not want to be around you, not to want to not put up with it, and to say someone else should deal with the problem. It's part of, we do have to develop a sensitivity because it's like the biggest way to distance people. You know what else distances people? Poverty. People don't want to be around poverty. Lo aleinu, someone goes through a terrible loss, a tragedy. Oh, the flowers come in, the food, and they fill up the house with all the nice things. Someone loses their money, they have a contagious form of the plague. Nobody goes near you. They won't do business with you. They won't talk to you. They won't look at you in the eyes. The same thing is true with depression, unfortunately. People stay away from you. And that's a very dark side of the human dynamic. But if we know that, if we're thinking about sadness and happiness, not just the part of it that's in our control, the little part of it that we can govern. I'm talking about the part that when you say it out, you realize, wow, my body works. Like, holy cow, that moment. If we control that little part, recognize that it causes people to either be close or distant to us, right? By the way, someone who can't go to the bathroom, you don't want to be near him anyway. Other issues, but the reality is that part we control. All the more so in areas of importance. When you're in front of a king, if you had a meeting with the president, right? Put on your best outfit, you put on your best face, and you go in there with a killer attitude, right? You're going to win this conversation. You have a big interview. When it matters most, you know how to summons that strength. You know how to conjure up that simchat hachayim. K'mod chsiv in Nehemiah. Vayomer li hamelech, madua panecha ra'im. Says in Nehemiah, Hashem says, the king says to me, why the sour face? You're not sick. Must be there's some bitterness in your heart. That when it comes to the palace of the king, there's always joy. In the Heichal of the King of Kings, there is joy and there is celebration in his place. There is a corollary to this verse that we experience only in Tisha B'Av, where it says, in hidden places my soul cries. But in the external chambers where we experience God, there's only strength and joy. So there is a hidden place where God cries every now and then. Tisha B'Av, and this is a separate Torah, is that one day a year when we kind of barge into the inner chamber of God and we see his real pain. But he hides that pain from us. Because Malchus is about an external facade of joy. And only once a year those teardrops escape and they cause a lot of pain. But normally, Oz the Cheva bin Kuma. Okay, any questions before we go
on? Rabbi Gelman, it's sort of the idea that happiness should be.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Say it again.
Oh, okay, sorry. That happiness should be the norm rather than sadness, because if you look at your life, you want to look at, as this tying in the bathroom prayer. You have to assess all the good things that Hashem has given you. So if you really look at that, then it's much harder to be sad, unless it's a clinical issue, which is a whole other thing. But if just taking, and if you're not jealous of other people, and if you don't, covet your neighbor, and you're focused on the things you should be focused on, then you will be happy.
Well, I don't know where that line is between the clinical and that which is in our control. All I know is that in everything in this world, there are things that are in our control and things that aren't in our control. That's for sure. So if you take care of yourself and you take the medication that you need to, and you exercise and all the things that you can do, right? Then there's no tightness. There's no tightness, right? We just read the story.
Well, that's a totally different piece to it, because you have to, as with any other health condition, you have to take care of it so that you won't suffer from it. I mean, it's the same as anything else, but I think people who are sad from depression find it very hard to see any of these good things that we're talking about in life, to be able to, and they can't really balance the all the blessings against how they are feeling. I think it's very hard for them to do that.
Right. Yeah.
So what is our response?
Like anywhere else, my speaker is going crazy here, but I'm hearing what you're saying, and there's no judgment here. There's certainly someone who's a clinical issue. There's a lot that's beyond our control. So we're only talking about the part that's in our control here, right? That's what we're talking about. There's an extreme story in the Gemara in Tainus, a man named Nachum Ish Gamzu. You heard about Nachum Ish Gamzu? There's an expression, Gamzu Latova. This is also for the good. So one of the reasons why he was named Nachum Ish Gamzu is because he came from a town of Gamzu, which is somewhere near Gonzaga University. But then there's also his name was Gamzu Latova. Gamzu Latova means this is also for the good. The Gemara tells us that he had a miserable life. He was blind in both eyes. He was missing his arms, missing his legs, and his torso was filled with mukish skin, filled with boils. And he lied on his bed. His bed was rickety. His house was falling apart. And in order to prevent the ants from creeping up onto his bed, he would put the legs of his bed in buckets of water, so the ants couldn't get in, creep up his bed. So the Gemara tells us that and everything he did was Gamzu Latova, everything for the best, and he was able to see a perspective that everything that God's doing. So that's an extreme example. And whenever they needed a favor with God or someone to send a tribute to the Caesar, they would send Nachum Ish Gamzu, because he understood how to see the benefit, how to see the good in this world. So everything's about perspective. Also, I don't think anyone can be expected to be on that level, but I do think that there is a certain extent that there's things in our control. The Klalu Shesimcha Ba Kishiro. So Kobo. The Kobo writes. I remember when in the Bronx we had a chazan, one of the good old Jews in the Bronx who was davening for the Amud for Ne'ilah. It was normal in the Bronx to have like outbursts in the middle of shul, like where people just fight back and forth. This is part of the culture. So this guy was davening for the Amud, and someone started to correct him at Ne'ilah. And he said, and he held up his machzor and he goes, "It's the Kol machzor. That means everything's in it. I have it right." He started going back and forth with the guy in the shul, saying that everything's proper in his machzor. Anyway, so that the Kolbo writes that that the inyan of the bracha she'asimcha b'mono. Now there's a bracha we recite. Someone give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, good. There's an inyan that when we go to a simcha, a wedding, a sheva brachos, we say the bracha she'asimcha b'mono. That blessed is he who gave us joy in his I don't even know how to translate that, but the simcha b'mono is joy in his ma'on, in his abode, right? His home, his abode, on page 110, right? Middle of the page. So lama yesh simcha b'shamayim? Why is there joy in Shamayim? Because every day God creates new angels. Every day an angel gets his wings. And the rule is like this. This is a great yesod. People experience joy when they have new beloved things in their life. You get a new car, right? It has the leather smell, or the new car smell. There's even a fragrance with cars called new car. I don't know what that is, but it's like the greatest smell in the world. You know what that smell is? That's the smell of joy. Something new. It's the best smell in the world. A new car, the items that the kids drop in between the seats aren't there, and the Cheerios and other things, just new. So new gives joy. What if you don't see your best friend for a long time? You didn't see your best friend for like a whole year or longer. Or a new fruit that only comes up every year, once a year. You should make a shechianu because you're so happy. That which you see, even if it's something that's beloved, it's already old and there's no joy. This is why you need a new phone every 2 years. Because you realize that, what do you mean? I've had that phone already. I need more megapixels. My son was taking me a photo with his new phone and he's like, look, I'm like 1,000 feet away from that sign, that traffic sign. And I could zoom in and I could see see it, each letter at 100 times amplification. And like, this is somehow something you need. It's nothing you need, it's just new. And new makes us happy. And that which is old, that which we're used to, we're not happy with it anymore. You get bored with it. There are things that are so great that the more you see it, you keep seeing new things, keep discovering new things about that which is old. Something that's eternal, with no end. When it comes to Hashem, it comes to the matters of Kedusha. On the contrary, every day is new, more and more. In Cain, and if that's the case, you're to see Hashem's face every day. That every day I see God, it's like a new experience. You daven like you've never davened before. Every prayer has a new flavor, a new oneg, a new joy. Tikkun noraim, chadashim, and you fix a new thing and you focus on a new prayer. No Shemona Esrei is like another one. Moshe Bir ben Eved Chaim. This is what Reb Chaim Volozhiner says. Shem me'esh tiknua ad bias goel. Right? Lo hayo v'lo yiyeh shum tefillah b'ravadas domel chavitus kon lo acharecha. From the day that the Anshe Knesset Gadol established the prayers to the day in which Mashiach will come, no tefillah will be the same, like snowflakes, right? None of them will be the same. The levushin, the levish b'tzafra v'lo levish b'ramasha, the levish b'ramasha ramasa, chen kol yom chaver shlo v'yacharav. And that's why each day you don a different garment that you do in the morning and evening. V'chein kol yom chavero, shleznei v'charav, before and afterwards. V'chein amru hazal, ma'vet lo yuchal litkon, zeh shebitl kriyat shema shachris, or tefillah. A crooked thing that cannot be fixed refers to someone who didn't take advantage of the new opportunity he had to daven, say Shema. The Kohen Gadol, in the first time in his career, would offer a carbon called the Mincha Chadasha, the new Mincha. But also every day he would offer Minchas Talitin. Every day he would offer a Mincha, which is the same offering offered in the first day. And the Gemara points out that every single day he'd offer this carbon, and he didn't get old. What was amazing about the Kohen Gadol is that he was able to do the same thing with the same excitement each day as he did the first time in his career. Right? Anything worthwhile in this world ages like fine wine. That's the theory. Everything else that's futile and empty becomes boring after a while. Right? But wouldn't you say that, go back to the example of an Asher Yatzar, that someone who is, in their mid 80s and they're able to go to the bathroom, wouldn't you say that they have more joy than someone who's 5 years old, right? I admit that when you're like 3 and you go to the bathroom for the first time, there's a big celebration, right? There's a big party. Everybody's like, yeah, look what he did. But after a while, we no longer have. We used to. My parents, when we were potty trained, they took us out for ice cream. I'll never forget that when they decided when they wanted to potty train one of our siblings, I think it was Asher, and whatever, we were having some trouble. It was a little, the Suez Canal was clogged. So I remember that one of, I think my older brother pretended to use the bathroom for him, and then we all went out for ice cream. But there was a celebration. There used to be a big celebration when someone and then we forget about it. And no one's like, there's a friend of mine who's a kind of a shticky guy in YU, and they had like a whole band, and they had like a drums and like a trumpet and and guitar, and they filled up all the stalls in one of the bathrooms except for one with the musical instruments, and they sat with their feet up so nobody would see in there. And then when someone would flush, they would start playing a whole triumphant victory song. So it sounds funny, but if you think about it, there should be like a celebration. Now why? Because the more you experience a miracle, the more you should recognize it. So an 85-year-old who's able to function properly, there's no greater joy in the world. So it's something that ages well and gives you joy, more joy each day, something of authentic quality, you celebrate it more later on. But something like a long-lasting friendship relationship, it can withstand the ups and downs of time. But if your mother-in-law looks at you funny the first year of marriage, forget about it. It's the most devastating thing in the world. Later on, it's like a shtick. It's my mother-in-law. I love her. She's the best. The first time something happens, it's the worst. So things that are built over time, you can recognize the true depth, and they last through the ages. So Koshkin Etzem Kavos Pnei Shechina. When it comes to the reception of the countenance of the Shechina, so machma, there's a hitzchadshus to me. There's a constant renewal. Machmas ein sofioto, because we're always experiencing God in a new way. Makor Mayim Chaim. It's like the flowing river that is always renewed. Shekabala Shechina Hinei Makor Chaim. Makor Mayim Chaim. The Shechina, the divine presence, is the very essence of a constant renewable energy. L'kor harei tamid hakol chadash. It's always new. And this is what requires you to daven with greater joy. Ima adam, if a person atzuv is sad, the shas tefillah v'alos Hashem, and they're davening, nafsho yevesha alav, and your soul becomes dry. Simnu shem b'tefillah v'alos mashi is machuso. Nothing is making you happy and joy in davening. And nothing is making you, turning you on in your davening. You don't enjoy, you don't feel it's special to visit the house of God anymore. Look at the essence of tefillah. It should awaken you to feel joy. And you should know with absolute faith that every time you daven, you're experiencing something new. There's no joy like davening. You should try very hard to experiencing this renewal every time you get up to davening. And that's the joy of something that ages nicely, like seeing Hashem, the familiar God, a familiar friend, every single time.